Hi, and welcome to the making and behind the scenes look at the 1982 movie Who Dares Wins. The film starred Lewis Collins, Judy Davis, Richard Widmark, Ingrid Pitt and many other stars. The film was based on the Iranian embassy siege that took place in London from the 30th of April to the 5th of May when the SAS stormed the building to rescue hostages. Ewan Lloyd was inspired to make the movie after visiting the scene during the siege. This was Lewis Collins' first major movie acting role after becoming from the successful TV series The Professionals, which also starred Martin Shaw and Gordon Jackson. It was to be a 3-picture deal for Lewis Collins, as a sequel was planned where Captain Scullen would lead a team of SAS soldiers into the Falklands on a secret mission as part of the war. Also, he was to star in the movie sequel The Wild Geese 2, but unfortunately he didn't get the role. During the time of the making of Who Dares Wins, there was talk that Lewis would make a great James Bond, and there was reports that he even screen tested for the role. Sadly, producer Albert R. Broccoli didn't think he was suitable. I think Lewis was ahead of his time and would have made a great James Bond and would have portrayed it very much like Daniel Craig has. As when you look at the movie Who Dares Wins, there were some real Bond-esque type moments in it, as he could show his tough and witty and charming side. Such a pity. Sadly, Lewis passed away on November the 27th, 2013, after a long, brave battle with cancer. The budget for the movie was reported to be £5 million, and it was the 6th highest grosser at the UK box office in 1982. The production ran for 8 weeks and 4 days. So now let's take a look at some key scenes from the movie and how they look today. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to look at is when the 2 American soldiers go on exercise with the rest of the British SAS team. The place they used in real life was Snowdonia in Wales, and the waterfall is Ogwen Falls. After studying the movie and looking at the waterfall, I managed to find the location. It took me a while. If you notice, there is actually a bridge to the left-hand side, but in the movie they don't show it. I think that would have been to make it look even more wild. From the pictures as it looks today, you can see it hasn't changed much. The market scene was filmed at Portobello Road, London, and this was the first scene to be filmed. It was shot in January 1982, and I've checked on the weather forecast for that year, and on that month, on the 8th and 9th, a severe blizzard struck the south. It stopped many people getting to work, so I think they were lucky to get this scene done. As you can see from the shots, there's a fair bit of snow lying around. The film company had booked 15 stalls to turn up, but only a few did due to the weather, so they had to make the best of a bad job. Again, this took some studying to find the exact spot where they were once standing, but here it is. This is where Lewis once stood. Only a few minor changes to the shot fronts, but it looks the same really. Here's a bit of trivia. Probably not many people have noticed, but the Special Branch Officer is played by British wine expert Oz Clarke. This was actually Lewis Collins' own car, which is the Renault 5 Automatic. Looking at the history of the vehicle, it was around till about 1997. I think they would have done this to keep the budget down, as these days most films have cars provided by car manufacturers for product placement. Lois drives into the garage and then walks into the house. Only thing that has changed is the garage door colour, which is now white instead of black. Wonder what it feels like to live in the house that Captain Skellum once owned. We come back to the house later in the movie. In this scene, a foreign man, Malek, arranges with a city banker for the distribution of large sums of money to various left organisations, including the People's Lobby. The bank where Malek deposits his $600,000 is actually the Athenaeum Club in Pall Mall. This was later used by the Metropolitan Police Support Units, which were on standby for the Libyan embassy siege that happened in 1984, 2 years after this film was made. Here we have Judy Davis driving a Lotus Eclair. This was actually Ewan Lloyd's own car. The last history of the vehicle I could find goes up to 1985, so it still might be around somewhere, but I'm not sure. Here's what it looks like today, and also inside the chapel. This was also used for the rock concert that was later in the film. Still looks the same after all these years. The motorbike used by Mark Ryan in this scene is a 1981 Yamaha Dt 175MX. And after checking, it was still around in 2018, which is great to think it's still around. This I would say was done not long after the Portobello Road market scene, as the snow is still around, as it didn't snow again from the 8th and 9th of January. This is one of my favourite parts in the movie, as it was a real Bond-esque type scene, and the great score by Roy Budd really adds to the action. Pausing the movie and checking the frames, you can see it was a stuntman that performed the leap onto the ferry and cleverly hiding his face from the camera. We then come back to Kynance Mews for a brief scene where Lois drives off on his motorbike to see his wife and child. The motorbike is a Harris Magnum Suzuki 1100 and was Lewis's own bike. If you look closely when he's accelerating away, the back wheel slides out on the wet cobbled surface. The bike was still around in 2014, but after that, I'm not sure. The place where he arrives is actually Kensington Gardens, just to the right of the orangery. By the look of the snow on the ground, this again would have been filmed around the middle of January. When you look at the scene, you can see they had cleared the snow for Lewis to drive up. After getting off his motorbike, he slips on the icy surface. I bet he was glad he didn't drop the bike. This is a great part in the movie as it showed some great acting skills from Lois and Rosalind Lloyd, Ewan Lloyd's daughter. This was the first scene they did together and only met briefly before they had to do the scene. Then we have Ingrid Pitt and Mark Ryan turn up. The car was a 1980 Volvo 345 and was around till 1991. Another great action scene in the movie is when Lewis is being tailed again by Mark Ryan. The location they used was Trafalgar Square in London. If you look, the railings where Mark is seen through are still there. When Lewis jumps off the bus, you can see again it was a stuntman. Then Lewis comes running around the corner to catch the next bus. It really showed that Lewis could run, and you could be watching a James Bond film if you didn't realise. Where the three people are standing looking at the sign is where he would have caught the bus and noticed Mark Ryan. When we go back to the American Soldiers bus, we see it driving along a village and then into the countryside. Now in reality the bus actually starts off from in front of these houses in a place called Littlewick Green. This actually took me a bit of working out to get the exact spot when you first see it in the film. The houses and the area have hardly changed. Also in the film, when they go back to the bus for a few shots of it driving along, again in reality it hadn't gone that far, as when it goes past the well in this picture, it's only just a few yards up the road. When Judy Davis falls off the horse, you can see from the still it's a stunt woman. Then the next shot is of Judy lying on the ground. We only get a brief shot of the farm where the terrorists take the American soldiers after hijacking the bus. The farm was used in a few episodes of the TV series The Professionals. The shot that they used in the film makes it again look like it's in the middle of nowhere. Back to Kynance Mews, where we have Ingrid Pitt and Mark Ryan just about to take Rosalind Lloyd and her child hostage. Again, I studied this scene and noticed they walk down some steps after walking past the special branch officer. The steps are opposite the house and go up to the road above, which is called Victoria Road. Where you see the silver car is where the yellow van would have been parked. Here I've zoomed in on the steps. After hijacking the bus and then swapping uniforms, they make their way to the American embassy. The first shot we see is them pulling up at the gates. Now the gates are Heatherden Hall gates at Pinewood Studios. These gates have been used in quite a few TV series and films, to name a few: The New Avengers, Man in a Suitcase, The Persuaders, Carry On Screaming, and Carry On Nurse. I think the coach lamps in the film were added to make it look more like an embassy and to make it more stately. The building inside the gates is the South Lodge, which was used to look like a guard's house. I think these days the main entrance up the road is now used. Notice there's no gold paint on the top of the gates. After entering the embassy grounds, we get our first shot of the building. The American embassy seen in the movie is actually Heatherden Hall, the main building of Pinewood Studios near London. The corridors, the stairs and the dining room of the studios were used in the film. The third floor windows along the top are all false, so that the stuntman could smash them in when crashing through. The filming took place around the 16th of February 1982. This would mean that it's coming towards the end of filming, as it ended after 7 weeks. According to reports, when it came time to shoot the SAS assault on the US Embassy, the crew had prepared the helicopters and stuntmen, but the SAS offered to do the scene instead. Ian Sharp accepted, as he thought the look they gave could not be replicated by the crew. The helicopters featured in the film, where the SAS abseiled from, are all Westland Scouts. 150 were made by 1968, and they saw action in the Falklands War in 1982. When you look at the real Iranian embassy siege, you can see why they chose to use Heatherden Hall, as it's pretty convincing as an embassy. The main entrance to the hall that you see at the end of the film, where the helicopters come in and take the SAS soldiers away, had a conservatory added to the front where the door was once situated, and became known as the Gatsby Suite. However, this was subsequently removed and now forms part of the enlarged outdoor terrace. The main hall that was used in the film, where the ambassador and his guests were, is now used for wedding functions, etc. The gardens and grounds where the helicopters land, and Edward Woodward and Tony Doyle are standing, have been used in other movies such as Carry On films and James Bond movies, such as the opening sequence in From Russia with Love. I've really enjoyed revisiting Who Dares Wins and investigating the locations and finding some behind the scenes facts. I do have to say, it has been at times tinged with sadness because the fact that Lewis Collins isn't alive anymore. And when you look at the locations, you can imagine him standing there. I hope this has been an enjoyable video for you all to watch. And if you're ever near or at the locations, take a minute to remember Lois and remember what a brilliant actor he was. Thank you for watching. and I'll leave you with the stills gallery from the movie. Thanks. Bye.